The call came through at 2:15 p.m. on a Tuesday while I was 3 levels deep in Oracle database logs, watching transaction rollbacks cascade through 4 startup clients like dominoes falling in slow motion. Each failed query was costing approximately $45,000 per hour across the affected systems. My phone buzzed against my desk. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. I pulled my headset off and checked the screen. Wade Phillips, my direct supervisor at TechVault Solutions, calling from his corner office about 30 feet away from my workstation. My name is Hugh Spencer. I'm 54 years old and I just got fired while managing a database crisis that nobody else at my company knows how to solve. I almost didn't answer because when you're troubleshooting a cascading Oracle failure that's bringing down 4 production environments, internal office calls feel less urgent than the red alert messages scrolling across your monitors. But I answered anyway because that's what 29 years of being a reliable database administrator conditions you to do. Hugh Spencer speaking. Hugh, it's Wade. I need to inform you of a company decision, effective immediately. We no longer require your services as senior Oracle architect. Your employment is terminated as of today. I looked at my primary monitor. Error log SP20642 still flashing. Database connection pool exhausted across all 4 client environments. Transaction queue backlog showing 12,084/7 pending operations. Monica Reed from Dataflow Dynamics standing 15 feet away, watching my screens with the desperate expression of someone whose entire business runs on systems that just went offline. I understand. I said, keeping my voice level. I'll inform Monica that you'll be handling the database recovery procedures for the crisis I'm currently managing. Silence long enough that I thought the call might have dropped. What crisis? The coordinated Oracle database failure that brought me here at 6 a.m. this morning. 4 startup clients are in full system lockdown. The failure is costing approximately $180,000 per hour in lost transactions and SLA violations. I'm in the middle of rebuilding the connection pools and optimizing the query execution plans. I assume you'll want to send someone else to complete the recovery work since I no longer work for TechVault. More silence. I could hear him typing, probably pulling up the client status dashboard for the first time today. Hugh, let's discuss this after you've resolved the database situation. I don't think that's appropriate. You just terminated my employment. I shouldn't be working on TechVault projects if I'm no longer a TechVault employee. I'll brief Monica on what I've discovered so far and head home, or actually not back to the office since you said not to bother returning. Wait, Hugh, let me call you back. He ended the call before I could respond. My workstation showed 47 active database connections hanging in timeout status. Each timeout was costing our clients money they couldn't afford to lose. Before I explain what happened over the next 48 hours, let me establish who I am and why that phone call was the most expensive mistake Wade Phillips ever made. I joined TechVault Solutions in 1995 as a database administrator specializing in enterprise Oracle implementations. Back then, Y2K was approaching fast, and companies were just starting to realize their database systems weren't going anywhere anytime soon. TechVault provided database consulting for startups, mid-size companies, and regional businesses that ran critical operations on Oracle systems built throughout the 1990s and early 2000s. My role was troubleshooting complex database failures that younger engineers didn't understand and couldn't fix. When a company's Oracle database crashed and their IT team couldn't restore service, they called TechVault. TechVault sent me. Over 29 years, I'd responded to 340 database emergencies across 8 states. I debugged connection pool exhaustion, diagnosed index corruption, identified memory leaks, and restored transaction integrity for systems that could have cost clients millions in data loss. I'd worked through hurricanes, holidays, and family vacations. I'd missed my daughter Zoe Spencer's college graduation to fix a database crash at a logistics company in Hartford. I'd spent my 50th birthday in a server room in Providence rebuilding Oracle indexes, while my wife Amanda Spencer celebrated alone at home. That was the old way of doing business. When you gave a company your expertise, they valued it. When they had a crisis, you showed up. Loyalty was supposed to be a two-way street. Most importantly, I developed deep expertise in Oracle database optimization that most companies still depended on but couldn't find anymore. Every business had unique configurations. Every system had custom modifications. Every performance bottleneck had quirks that existed only in my experience-based understanding of how Oracle behaved under stress. That knowledge was what made me valuable to TechVault. That knowledge was also what Wade Phillips had just eliminated from TechVault's crisis response capability at the worst possible moment. The Boston crisis had started 14 hours earlier. Dataflow Dynamics, CloudServe, Startup Metrics, and Digital Harbor had all called TechVault's emergency hotline within 2 hours of each other, reporting Oracle database failures that were bringing down their entire business operations. All 4 companies used similar Oracle 11 GRIM implementations. All 4 were experiencing identical connection pool exhaustion patterns. This was the kind of coordinated failure that kept database professionals awake at night. Someone with serious technical knowledge was systematically probing Oracle installations, or there was a deeper infrastructure problem affecting multiple clients simultaneously. TechVault's standard protocol was remote diagnostics first. I spent 6 hours on video calls with each company's technical teams, walking them through log analysis and reviewing error patterns. By 10 p.m. Monday, I determined this wasn't something that could be resolved remotely. The failure pattern suggested a memory leak in Oracle's connection handling that was triggered by high transaction volumes. These systems processed thousands of database operations per minute when working properly. When the connection pools failed, everything backed up like a clogged drain. I took the commuter rail into Boston Tuesday morning, arriving at Dataflow Dynamics at 7 a.m. Monica Reed met me at the security desk. She looked like she hadn't slept in 2 days, which she probably hadn't. Mr. Spencer, thank you for coming. We've been locked out of our primary database for 18 hours. Our customers can't access their dashboards. We're hemorrhaging money every minute this continues. I understand the urgency. I need direct console access to examine the Oracle processes and connection pool allocation. This type of failure requires hands-on debugging. She led me to their server room. 2 racks of humming database servers, each one normally processing hundreds of transactions per second when they weren't frozen in connection timeout loops. All silent now, all offline, all costing Dataflow approximately $28,000 per hour in lost customer access. This was the kind of place that reminded me why I got into database work. These weren't just computers. They were the backbone of modern businesses. Every customer login, every data query, every report generation flowed through systems like these. And when they went down, real people suffered. Companies couldn't serve their customers. Employees couldn't access the tools they needed to work. Revenue stopped flowing. I spent the next 6 hours tracing the connection pool failure through Oracle's memory allocation logs, identifying the specific subroutines that were hanging and mapping the cascade pattern across all 4 affected clients. This wasn't some random hardware failure. This was a systematic problem with Oracle's connection handling under sustained high load conditions. The technical details would bore most people, but here's what mattered. Oracle databases use something called connection pooling to manage how applications talk to the database. Think of it like a busy restaurant with a limited number of tables. When the restaurant gets overwhelmed, customers have to wait in line. But if the hostess system breaks down, nobody knows who's next, and the whole place grinds to a halt. That's exactly what was happening here. Each of these 4 companies had grown their user bases beyond their original Oracle configuration parameters, but nobody had updated the database tuning to match. It's like adding more customers to the restaurant without hiring more waitstaff or expanding the kitchen. The problem was specific to Oracle 11 GRIM running on systems that had been configured 3 to 5 years ago when these startups had maybe 10,000 users. Now they were processing requests from 100,000 users with the same database infrastructure. The connection pools couldn't handle the load. Most database administrators would have recommended upgrading to Oracle 12c or migrating to a cloud solution. But that would take months of planning, testing, and implementation. These companies needed their systems back online in hours, not months. That's where my 29 years of Oracle experience became critical. I knew these older systems inside and out. I understood their quirks, their limitations, and most importantly, how to optimize them beyond their original specifications without breaking them completely. By 2 p.m. Tuesday, I'd isolated the root cause. A combination of outdated Oracle connection drivers and insufficient memory allocation for connection pooling was creating a cascade failure when transaction volumes exceeded certain thresholds. All 4 companies had hit that threshold simultaneously during peak usage hours Monday afternoon. Fixing it required rebuilding the connection pool architecture, updating the Oracle memory parameters, and implementing new connection throttling that would prevent similar failures without limiting business operations. This wasn't like restarting your computer. You couldn't just reboot Oracle and hope for the best. Every change had to be tested, validated, and implemented with surgical precision. One mistake, and you could corrupt the entire database permanently. I estimated 8 to 12 hours of careful database work across all 4 companies. It was the kind of work that required not just technical knowledge, but institutional memory. You had to understand not just how Oracle worked, but why specific configurations had been implemented and how business requirements had evolved over time. The work involved diving deep into Oracle's buffer cache settings, adjusting shared pool allocations, and reconfiguring the connection manager parameters. For each client, I had to analyze their specific usage patterns, identify their peak transaction loads, and calculate optimal pool sizes that would handle their current volume with room for growth. At Dataflow, for example, their connection pool was configured for 50 concurrent connections, but they were regularly hitting 200 plus during busy periods. The system would start queuing connection requests, then timing out when the queue got too long. Once the timeout started, it created a cascade effect where every subsequent connection attempt made the problem worse. The solution was increasing the pool size to 300 connections and implementing intelligent throttling that would queue requests more efficiently instead of just timing them out. But you couldn't just change those numbers randomly. Oracle's memory allocation had to be recalculated to support the larger pools without starving other database processes. This was detective work combined with surgery. Every parameter change affected multiple other systems, changed the connection pool size, and you had to adjust the memory allocation. Adjust the memory allocation, and you had to verify the server had enough physical RAM. Verify the RAM, and you had to check that other applications weren't competing for the same resources. It was exactly the kind of complex, interdependent problem-solving that you learn through decades of hands-on experience. There's no certification exam for this stuff. You can't Google your way through it. You either know how these systems behave under stress, or you don't. I started rebuilding the first connection pool at 2:10 p.m. Tuesday. At 2:15 p.m., Wade called and told me I was fired. After Wade hung up, Monica approached me cautiously. You could see the panic starting to replace hope as she processed what she'd just overheard. "Mr. Spencer, is everything all right?" That sounded serious. "I just got terminated by my employer while in the middle of fixing your database systems." Her expression went from concerned to horrified. In her world, businesses didn't just stop operating for days while technical problems got sorted out. Every hour these systems stayed down was costing her company money and customers it couldn't afford to lose. Terminated? But you're the only person who understands our Oracle configuration. What happens to our database? That's an excellent question. TechVault will need to send someone else to complete the work. How long will that take? The other engineer who understands these Oracle configurations is Owen Fisher. He's in Denver managing a government contract. TechVault might have to wait until he becomes available. How long? Owen's federal engagement is scheduled for another 12 days, plus travel time. Monica's face went white. I could see her doing the math. 12 days of downtime would cost Dataflow over $8 million in lost revenue, plus customer defection that could destroy the company permanently. We can't wait 12 days. 12 hours might kill us. Can't you just finish what you started? I was fired 8 minutes ago. I can't ethically continue working on a project for a company that just terminated my employment. At 3:30 p.m., my phone rang again. This time it was Linda Carter, TechVault's Chief Technology Officer. Linda had been with the company for 14 years and understood exactly how critical my role was to database crisis management. She was also smart enough to realize that Wade had just made a catastrophic error in judgment. "Hugh, I just got off the phone with Wade. There's been a misunderstanding about your employment status. We need you to complete the Boston engagement before we discuss any personnel matters." Linda, Wade was very clear. He said my employment was terminated effective immediately. That's not a misunderstanding, that's termination. I could hear the desperation creeping into her voice. Linda understood the implications in a way that Wade obviously didn't. This wasn't just about one disgruntled employee. This was about TechVault's entire reputation in the Boston tech ecosystem. I understand this is confusing, but let's focus on resolving the database crisis first. We can address your employment situation after you've restored the Oracle systems. I don't think that's appropriate. If I'm terminated, I shouldn't be working on TechVault projects. If I'm not terminated, then Wade needs to call me back and clarify that he made an error. This is a critical client situation. These companies are losing hundreds of thousands of dollars per hour. We need you to complete the database recovery. Then you need to clarify my employment status first. Am I a TechVault employee or not? Long pause. I could hear Linda weighing her options. If she said I was still employed, she'd be contradicting Wade's termination and creating internal political problems. If she said I was terminated, she'd be admitting that TechVault had just eliminated their database crisis capability in the middle of their most expensive emergency. Hugh, let me conference in Wade so we can resolve this together. I'd rather you didn't. Wade was clear about his decision. I'm respecting that decision by no longer working on TechVault projects. If the clients need assistance, they should contact TechVault's emergency response line and request another engineer. There is no other engineer available who understands these legacy Oracle configurations. That's an unfortunate situation, but it's not my problem anymore since I'm no longer a TechVault employee. I ended the call. Monica was standing nearby, having heard my side of the conversation. The weight of the situation was settling on her shoulders like a lead blanket. What should we do, Mr. Spencer? You should contact TechVault and request emergency engineering support. Explain the urgency of the situation. They'll prioritize getting someone here as quickly as possible, but you're here now. You understand our systems. You were in the middle of fixing the connection pools. Can't you just complete the work? I thought about that carefully. In the old days, you'd finish the job regardless of company politics because it was the right thing to do. But I'd learned something important over 29 years in corporate America. Loyalty has to go both ways. I'd given TechVault my best years, missed family events, worked holidays, and built their reputation one crisis at a time. The moment it became convenient, they treated me like obsolete equipment. I was fired 47 minutes ago. I can't ethically continue working on a project for a company that just terminated my employment. What if we hired you directly? Not through TechVault, but as an independent consultant working for Dataflow Dynamics. Now that was interesting. I'd never considered going independent. But at 54, maybe it was time to think about options beyond the corporate ladder. My wife Amanda Spencer had been telling me for years that I was too valuable to let one company control my future. She'd grown up watching her father work 35 years for the same manufacturing company, believing loyalty and hard work would guarantee security. When the company got bought out, they eliminated his pension and laid him off at 61. That would create contractual complications. Your companies have service agreements with TechVault. Those agreements probably have exclusivity provisions preventing you from hiring outside consultants to work on TechVault managed systems. I'll check our contracts. She called Dataflow's legal department, had a quick conversation that involved a lot of urgent whispers, then looked at me with cautious optimism. Our legal team says the service agreement has exclusivity provisions for routine maintenance, but emergency recovery can be conducted by any qualified consultant if TechVault cannot provide timely support. They're defining timely support as within 12 hours of request. That was the opening I needed, not just to solve this immediate crisis, but to test whether there was a future beyond TechVault. At 54, I was too old to start over at another company, but maybe not too old to start working for myself. Monica sent an email to TechVault's emergency response team, copying me, formally requesting immediate engineering support for the database crisis and noting that their previous engineer was no longer available to complete the recovery work. She marked it urgent and requested response within 8 hours. At 5:45 p.m., we received a response from TechVault's emergency coordinator that told us everything we needed to know. We acknowledge your request for emergency engineering support. Our senior database architects are currently committed to other client emergencies. We are working to identify available resources and will provide an estimated response timeline within 24 hours. 24 hours. In corporate speak, that meant they had no idea how to solve this problem without me, but they weren't ready to admit it yet. Linda was probably spending her evening calling every contractor and consultant she could find, trying to locate someone who understood Oracle connection pool optimization well enough to not make the crisis worse. What does this mean? Monica asked. It means TechVault doesn't have anyone available to send. Owen is in Denver, and apparently nobody else at TechVault has the expertise to handle Oracle connection pool failures. So we wait, or we exercise our contract provision and hire an independent consultant. Are you available as an independent consultant? This was the moment. At 54, after 29 years of corporate life, I was being offered the chance to work for myself, to set my own rates, choose my own projects, and never again worry about some manager deciding my expertise was too expensive. Amanda had been right. This wasn't a crisis, it was an opportunity. I could be, what would your rate structure look like? I thought about that carefully. Independent consulting rates for emergency database work typically range from $250 to $500 per hour, depending on expertise level and urgency. I was at the top of the expertise scale, and this was definitely urgent. But more than that, I was the only person available who could solve this problem. That kind of scarcity has value. $375 per hour for emergency database recovery, minimum 48-hour engagement to ensure complete system restoration and performance optimization. That's $36,000 total. Payment terms: 50% deposit before I resume work, remaining 50% upon successful restoration. Monica didn't even blink. When your company is losing $28,000 per hour and faces potential bankruptcy, $36,000 for a solution starts looking like a bargain. Done. I'll have our CFO process the deposit immediately. At 7:20 p.m. Tuesday, my phone chimed with a bank transfer notification. $18,000 had just cleared into my personal checking account, more money than I'd ever received for a single project in my entire career. At 7:30 p.m., I resumed work on the Oracle connection pools, but now I was working for myself. The experience of doing the same technical work as an independent consultant instead of a corporate employee changed everything. Every line of code I optimized was billable. Every problem I solved was building my reputation instead of someone else's company. Every decision was mine to make. For the first time in 29 years, I wasn't just fixing someone else's crisis. I was building my own future. By 1 p.m. Tuesday, I'd completed the connection pool rebuilds for Dataflow Dynamics. The work went faster than expected because I wasn't dealing with corporate approval processes or having to document every decision for managers who wouldn't understand the technical details. The technical process involved reconfiguring Oracle's shared server architecture, adjusting the connection manager parameters, and implementing intelligent connection throttling. For Dataflow specifically, I increased their connection pool from 50 to 280 concurrent connections, recalculated their shared pool memory allocation from 256 megabytes to 512 megabytes, and implemented connection queuing that would gracefully handle traffic spikes instead of timing out. By 6 a.m. Wednesday, I'd moved to CloudServe and Startup Metrics, implementing similar fixes tailored to their specific usage patterns. CloudServe needed connection pools optimized for short, frequent transactions. Startup Metrics processed longer analytical queries that required different memory allocation strategies. Each company's Oracle configuration told a story about how their business had evolved. CloudServe started as a simple file-sharing service but had grown into a collaboration platform processing millions of small transactions daily. Startup Metrics began as a basic analytics dashboard, but now handled complex data processing for enterprise clients. The database configurations hadn't evolved with the businesses. They were still tuned for the companies these startups used to be, not the companies they'd become. By noon Wednesday, I'd completed the final recovery work at Digital Harbor. Their situation was the most complex because they were running Oracle 11gram on virtual servers that were competing for memory resources with other applications. The solution required not just Oracle tuning but coordination with their infrastructure team to properly allocate server resources. Total system downtime, 32 hours. Total combined losses, approximately $5.76 million. But all four companies were back online with optimized database configurations that would prevent similar failures and handle their continued growth. More importantly, I'd just proven to myself that I didn't need TechVault. They needed me. Monica was watching the transaction monitors with visible relief as user logins began processing normally again. The green status lights were beautiful, each one representing thousands of database operations that had been frozen for over a day. Mr. Spencer, I cannot thank you enough. You saved our company from bankruptcy. How do I make sure other businesses know what you did here? I'll prepare a technical report documenting the failure analysis, recovery procedures, and optimization recommendations. You're welcome to share that as a reference. When I got home Wednesday evening, Amanda was waiting with a bottle of wine and a smile I hadn't seen in years. So how does it feel to be your own boss? She asked. Terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. I just made more money in 2 days than I usually make in 3 months. I told you this would happen eventually. You were too good for them. Now you get to prove it to everyone else. Over the next 2 weeks, I received 8 calls from companies experiencing Oracle database emergencies. Each call followed the same pattern: complex database failure. TechVault couldn't respond quickly enough. Could I help as an independent consultant? I helped all 8 clients. Total consulting revenue, $124,000 for $140,000 for 14 days of work. That was more than I'd made in the previous 8 months at TechVault. Word spreads fast in the Boston tech community. By September, I was receiving calls from companies that had never worked with TechVault, asking if I was available for database audits and performance optimization consulting. These weren't emergency calls. They were businesses that wanted to prevent emergencies by having someone who understood their Oracle systems before problems occurred. By November, I had 7 long-term consulting agreements with companies who wanted guaranteed access to my Oracle expertise when they needed it. Combined retainer revenue, $22,000 monthly, approximately $264,000 annually, plus additional project fees. The consulting work was more satisfying than anything I'd done in corporate life. Instead of being just another employee, I was a trusted advisor. Clients called me because they valued my expertise, not because HR assigned me to their project. When I made recommendations, companies implemented them because they were paying for my judgment. In January, TechVault formally offered me a consulting arrangement. $375 per hour for active database work, $4,000 monthly retainer for availability and consultation. 1-year contract renewable at my discretion. I accepted because it was guaranteed revenue, and TechVault still represented a reliable source of emergency work. But the power dynamic had completely changed. Now they were paying me premium rates for the same expertise they'd considered disposable. Wade Phillips lasted until March. The board terminated him after calculating that his decision to fire me during the Boston crisis had cost TechVault approximately $1 in lost client contracts, emergency consulting fees, and reputation damage in the Boston tech ecosystem. The irony wasn't lost on me. TechVault was now paying me more in 6 months than they'd paid me in 3 years as an employee. By late 2024, I was managing 12 consulting relationships with companies across New England. Annual revenue was approaching $680,000. I was working approximately 32 hours per week while earning nearly 4 times my previous salary. More importantly, I was valued. When clients called me for database emergencies, they understood they were paying premium rates for premium expertise. Nobody questioned whether my approach was worth the investment. They'd all seen what happened when they tried to solve Oracle problems without specialized knowledge. But the real change wasn't financial, it was psychological. For the first time in my career, I wasn't worried about layoffs, corporate restructuring, or some new manager deciding I was too expensive. My security came from my expertise, not from someone else's decision about whether to keep me around. Amanda and I started planning things we'd never been able to consider before. Maybe retiring to that lake house in New Hampshire we'd always talked about. Maybe taking that European trip we'd been postponing for 20 years. Maybe helping our daughter Zoe Spencer with a down payment on her first house instead of worrying about our own retirement savings. At 54, I thought my career was winding down. Instead, it was just getting started. Here's what I learned from the entire experience. The most dangerous employee to fire isn't the one who complains or threatens to quit. It's the one who's literally in the middle of solving a crisis that nobody else knows how to solve when you decide they're expendable. Wade wanted to reduce costs and eliminate what he saw as an expensive senior engineer. He got exactly what he wanted. I was eliminated, but my expertise wasn't eliminated. It just got a lot more expensive. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's letting them experience the full cost of being right about what they wanted. In my generation, we were taught that companies would take care of us if we were loyal and worked hard. That was true once, maybe, but it's not true anymore. These days, you have to take care of yourself. The security you build through your own skills and reputation is the only security that nobody can take away from you. At 54, I finally learned what my father never had the chance to figure out. Your value isn't determined by what one company is willing to pay you. It's determined by what the market will pay for what you know how to do. And sometimes the market values that knowledge a lot more than your employer ever did.